All right, hi, and welcome to a brand new video of the Target Individual Program. So today I did a video on Facebook, right, talking about how within the past 2 decades, right, this push on this drug culture, I should say, created by the CIA, right? And they didn't want me to do that video at all. Police sirens having uh, uh, what was a technical issue with my you know my settings or what have you, and then receiving phone calls. I said to myself, I haven't received a phone call all morning. As soon as I start doing my videos, guess what? A phone call. Okay. Then on top of that, I get a text from Pam asking me to uh, uh, check Ethan's report card. So I went online, downloaded. I said, why can't you check it? I spoke to her afterwards, right? I said to her, why didn't you check it? Oh, I got a headache. What does that have to do with anything? I said, you have the information. You can pull up on your phone. You have the the site, everything. But of course they want me to do it, and of course because the surveillance. So what they've been doing today, particularly with the police, again remote monitoring, hijacking my consciousness. Like I was walking and all of a sudden I started looking out the window. As I'm looking out the window, I hear, ooh, police sirens, right? Again, this is what they normally do. To where now, I guess they must have tuned the frequency of the signal, right? To where, again, I guess you had the police sirens again, whoop, to where now it's so subtle, right? But again, you still realize what's going on, right? And so, again, you start to feel that pressure build up in your head, right? Um, though they seem to not do it for a concentrated, more concentrated for a long period of time, right? Because I will get that pressure build up, and I know it's going to come the headaches, and they know it, and so what they'll do, they'll back off, right? But it's just enough to where they can direct my direction, my eyesight, and again, the total, every time I have, and this is ongoing too. So whenever I'm looking at something that's green, police sirens, the color brown, police sirens. Whenever the word women are mentioned, police sirens. Whenever any sort of positive word, affirmation word is being mentioned, or I'm reading, uh, police sirens, right? Again, when it's negative words, no sirens. It'll either be a car honk or what have you. They switch it up, right? So it depending, I guess, on what narrative they're out there pushing, or they want to push or to try to uh, deprogram me, right? Because they believe that they can deprogram me. Okay, even if it's just like I said, even what it is they, again, deceptive trickery, by engaging in certain things, and also using my kids as a threat mechanism, to where I'm not going to talk about this. And as soon as I mentioned kids, they started police sirens. So last night, if I remember, I was listening to something, and it says something about a woman having her kids taken away from her, right? So again, then it had it was the police sirens before that was mentioned, and then afterwards they did the car honk, right? So again, so when she called me, and she texted me, and I called her, and I said to her, "You have all the information." Oh, I got a headache, and my neck hurt, and all this stuff. Okay, so that prevents you from looking at your kid's report card. On top of that, my son had half a day today. She didn't tell me. She didn't tell me. I spoke to her yesterday. She didn't tell me, hey, Ethan has a half a day today. It's parents teachers conference. She's not telling me this, right? But she want me to go if it was my daughter, but not Ethan. Okay? Because again, I want you to understand how she chooses certain things to say and to do, depending on whatever narrative they are engaging with her or manipulating her into believing, right? And so she was like, you know, and she, after she said about the headache, she was like, uh, she mentioned Ethan's name or what have you, and then police siren, right? So again, I want you to understand how retaliative these people are. That because I'm not being silenced, I'm not allowing them to silence me, regardless of whatever narrative they put out there. They retaliation, right? And again, they start attacking my kids. So I also, what was it? The other day I was speaking to, it was yesterday. Yesterday I spoke to him and I asked him about the day before, and he couldn't remember, right? So this is one of the reasons why I had to go and have him get an MRI. But of course, when I got there, the technician I was there was talking to me, so I know that they did not give him the right, um, scan, whatever scan. Yeah, it wasn't right because because if he can't remember the day before, certain basic things like what time did you get to school? Did you get to school late or you get to school early? I can't remember. You know, and again, coming home constantly tired. Again, these are the effect also, not just because he and then he wakes up in the middle of the night. That's another thing too. So again, it's what they used to do to me. And also, like whenever, let's say if I shut down my computer, like last night, I think I shut down my computer, and it was again they're back on this number 32 thing, where if I shut down my computer in during the night, it's always at the 32 minutes after the hour. Okay, so again, but like I said, this it doesn't trigger me. It doesn't trigger me. I'm not looking to see, oh, let me turn off my computer. Let me wait. I'm not thinking about that, right? Because again, I know how they in the beginning how they conditioned me to that, to where I'm always like trying to like I'm always looking at the time I leave or what have you, make sure it's not the, what I'm saying, those sort of things, right? So they know, again, they know they've caused long term serious psychological harm as well as neurological harm, physical harm, and this is why you know um, whenever I take my sleeping medication, because again, I'm still unable to fall asleep on my own, so I take sleeping medication. Unless I'm really really tired. Let's say, like when I went to the mall that day, even though I didn't did a lot of walking, it was more walking than I normally did, and I was so tired because of that, and also because of the psyops that I ended up falling asleep, and waking up. I think I must have for like 2 or 3 hours. It wasn't like I slept through the whole night. Right. So this is why I take my sleeping medication, because then I'm able to get 8 hours, 9 hours of sleep. Even if I'm getting 6, 7 hours of sleep, it's such a deep sleep that I feel so far physically rested. Right. And so yeah, then they, so they started using the sirens when I'm taking my sleep medication because they don't want me to take a sleep medication. That's what it is. But understand, right? How when they do what they do is all is to, they know the effect of what it is that they do to the human mind, right? So if you're not able to sleep, right, your psychological state goes into a negative space, right? And what they call a breakdown, right? After a certain, I think after what, after 48, maybe what, after 72 hours of sleep, you start to experience psychosis. So imagine them manipulating you to not sleep using the technology to where you're unable to sleep. Then you go outside, they're engaged in the psyops. You're reacting because, again, your psyche has been damaged, right? Your psyche is at a point where, again, you're experiencing some mental trauma, psychosis, and then they go, oh, see, he's acting suspicious, so he's guilty or she's guilty, right? Understand how they use the sciences against us, particularly in our community, how ignorant we are because we are highly religious. This is why everything they want to associate with black people is magical and supernatural. Understand the language, right? This is why when police encounter even young black boys, they see them as overpowering, as their imagination goes wild. Oh, he was like Mike Brown, yeah, he's 17 years old, but he's as big as a gorilla, right? Or he was so strong that it was superhuman strength he had. This is their mindset, and I keep saying, I don't know why we keep believing these people, right? Like I said, me myself, I didn't know all this stuff. But being put through the stuff, being put through a non-consensual human experimentation program, as well as a coercive persuasion program, in order to silence me and discredit me, And like I said, I don't just talk about the psychological aspect, but the technological aspect as well, and also recent like a video I did today on particularly within our community within the past 2 decades, within and again these things are pushed through the music, about drugs, taking drugs, and these drugs are created for specific purposes, but they're also created for purposes in which you may not even know, such as rewiring of your brain to identify as a different, you know, let's say as a young man, you start to now identify yourself as more feminine, as because what these drugs do of the emotional uh, um, results, or the emotional effect, or the effect that those drugs have on your emotions, not just on sexuality, right? So a lot of these drugs, particularly like ecstasy, Molly, Percocet, even fentanyl, they heighten your sexual experience, right? So imagine you're young, I talked about this, particularly when it comes to young women, is that their sexual experience are heightened more so than young men. And so when they take these drugs, they become open to having, alternative sexual experience, whether it be threesomes, or whether it be bisexual sexual activity, right? And I said, you go look at the numbers, particularly within our community, right? The Black and European community that we live in. With over the past 2 decades, there have been an exponential rise in young black people, and particularly also in people, young, not people, but middle-aged people around my age, or in their early 40s also, who are now sexually confused because of those past experience, and because what these drugs do, right? As you get older, because when you're younger you take these drugs, and you have more energy, you're more vibrant, but as you and then again they have some of the best sexual experience that they will ever experience while on those drugs. Now what happened when you get older, right? 'Cause not only does this drug affect your mind, not just your neurological uh mind, but also the psychological as well, right? So what happens when, as you get older, because of those past experience, you you don't experience those things any longer as you get older. And so particularly with women uh, uh, mindset as they get older is they become more they start to think back about those experiences, those fantasies that they lived out when they were younger, right? So as they get older, their life become more boring, or they get into a relationship and the relationship settles. They don't understand the effect of how they were living when they were younger, how it affects them now, right? This is why they have a difficulty bonding with a mate, and it can be male or female, right? So if you're bisexual, if you're homosexual, it affects that too. Okay, it affects that too. You lose your ability to pair bond with a mate for to have a long-term relationship moving forward, because as soon as the relationships settle in, because we all love the newness, but as soon as the relationships settle in and things normalize, they don't like that. This is why women today, they reject normality, they reject average men, because they, in their mind, the delusional mindset that's created by all these different things that they see and they experience, right? They become more and more delusional as they get older. So when they do not have when the relationship normalize, or what they may say is boring, they start to fantasize back, think back of those younger years when they were having all this fun sexually, going out, doing all this stuff, right? They can never move psychologically, right? They can never move past their young self in their 20s, though their body's getting older, and they have all these issues, right? You know what I'm saying? Their mind their mind have a more rapid way of thinking, right? So your mind's supposed to slow down, not in terms of, your intellect, right? That's much later. But when you're in your 40s, your mind is going to slow down, because you're getting older now. So, and then at those age, where particularly most women hit their what they call their crisis or whatever middle age crisis, whatever you may call it, um, and particularly when they go through menopause, whether they be in the early 40s or in the late 40s, some into their 50s, that also has an effect. And so what you will see there is like all these, I showed this on Facebook. They are women, all the women about my age in my Facebook, or even a little bit younger, who they're in their underwear, or they're showing their bare asses, dancing and such and such, and shaking their asses, and they're single. They have no men, right? And the reason being is because they're in that depressive state. So they're going to do things that's fun, that they consider to be fun, and then talk about, oh, this is what freedom looks like. This is women empowerment. That's not women empowerment. And again, this is what these white supremacists have done to our minds, particularly the minds of our women, as a black man, right? And so again, the idea for them is to always have fun and always do the stuff, but then, you know, then they'll talk about, oh, they're waiting for Mr. Right. When you find Mr. Right, he ain't gonna want you because you done showing your goods to everybody in the damn planet. Okay. So what is a so-called Mr. Right? You think he's no, that's not gonna happen. And again, that's because we're not taught these things, particularly when you look at the in our community over the past 4 decades, right? The past 4 decades, from the 80s to the 90s to the early 2000 to now, to the 2010s, the teen go up to to now. There have been a covert war set against my people within the community that we live in, right? And it's on all level, multifaceted, right? And because those of us who are older, the generation before us, fail to teach us anything, and again, that's their conditioning to not teach young people within their group the truth, because they're stuck in that mindset also. All right. So again, when you don't protect your young, when you don't teach your young the truth about the reality of the world, particularly being that they're black or whatever, nigger, and what have you, guess what? You leave it to the predators to either destroy them, right? And they can kill them, incarcerate them, use them amongst themselves and each other. Okay. And then because they have this fear that they put into the older generation or the younger generation, and it's continuous. It's another reason why. So understand what's being done in our community, my community. And as TIs, for those of us who are black TIs, you know, um, we have to deal with the message, these white supremacist message, and particularly if you're pro black, all this stuff. Listen, I used to receive calls, calling me the N word, threatening to kill my kids, all this other stuff, right? So again, you're a white TI, right? And again, I'm not saying that my targeting is worse than yours. I'm just saying that this is another aspect of my targeting that I have to go through that you don't. Okay, maybe they might call you, some negative words associated with you being white or have you. But again, you know, let's put it like this: if I wasn't a TI, right, I would still be experiencing what you experience. I just would not be aware of it, and that's the vast majority of my people. Okay, so when I talk about it, like I said, don't feel don't get defensive or what have you. I understand. I'm not saying that what my experience is worse than yours. I'm just saying that there's more component in my targeting than maybe in yours. Okay, now maybe not. Maybe there's more component in your targeting than me. You know, but the fact is that we're all TIs. I'm just speaking as a TI and from a black perspective. You can speak as a TI from whatever ethnicity you are, and I say ethnicity. I say race. There's only one race, the human race. We're all ethnicities, different colors, different phenotypes, right? And we're all one race, right? This whole race, the white race, that's social construct. Okay. All right. So I hope you know shed some light on some things. All right. So I'll talk to you guys in the next video.